In today's episode, we follow Chimi, a 28-year-old in a post apocalyptic town where only a machine hums. Join her as she finds a moment of peace in the last fragment of silence in this world. There is nothing Jimmy hates more than waking up. When her friends talk about how they hate it, she understands but also doesn't. They often talk about a moment of quiet as their dreams come to an end. It's the most peaceful time of the day before their thoughts flood. Honestly, Jimmy has never experienced that moment. For her, the exhaustion of the day yet to come arrives before she wakes up. It's somehow different, yet the same each day. Sometimes her worries rudely intrude, as if she's listening to music while dreaming and her earphones are yanked off. Most times, they sneak into the dream, a gradual build up, like the drone of a plane that's flying closer and closer. She doesn't contemplate what's worse because the worst is that it always happens. Jimmy has been thinking about it, which means it's time for her to wake up. Her body shakes and a mild earthquake rocks her dream. Jimmy, Jimmy. A hand presses her arm and the tremors grow stronger. We need to go. Wake up. She ignores the familiar voice, and a second later, a pillow slams into her face, followed by a threat.
If you're not out in 10, I get half of your berries.
Berries of all kinds are a small source of delight in her life. She pushes herself off the bed and catches a glimpse of her brother leaving the room. And then she dozes off for a moment before jerking upright. Running a hand through her hair, she hesitates beside her bed, wanting to clean the absorbers, tapes, screws, and clothes scattered all over. But the clock ticking in the living room chases away the idea. The wind in the plains has already turned from biting cold to crisp. As the snow melts and summer arrives, more and more people will look for silence. Massive hordes will visit their shops in just a few weeks. To meet the demand when it comes, the siblings have to work extra hours in the morning. Putting on her thick green jacket, patchy in color and frayed at the seams, she makes her way to the door of her house, footsteps echoing. Her fingers brush markings on the kitchen wall in the dark. They are penciled records of her and her brother growing up in the house ever since they were toddlers. In some ways, the small wooden dwelling is a third parent. Though she tries to be mindful of her sleeping parents, the dog shrieks as she tiptoes outside. Her brother is waiting, rubbing his gloved palms, soaking the drowsiness of the town. When the winter ends, the air will be heavier, laden with particles, unseen but overwhelming. Right now, the air is clean, and Jimmy takes a deep breath. It's dead silent, except for an electronic buzz. She doesn't know what the machine is, as is the case for most of the townsmen. It works for a few hours when it's cold and almost continuously when it's hot. In the wee hours of the morning, her only opinion is that it's wonderful for her family business. Jimmy and her brother circle around the house and begin treading. Gravel cracks beneath their boots. Small stones split further and further until one day they will finally become soil. She exhales a cloud of mist. When they were young, the siblings used to pretend they were smoking. Smoking, whatever that was, didn't exist anymore, but they had heard of it from their grandfather, who had heard of it from someone else. In fact, her grandfather had told them countless things about the past. When he lived with them, he would tuck them in and narrate stories about a universe that existed once upon a time. He also taught them about their current trekking route, the easiest path to Shanti. The hum grows softer as they cover more distance away from their town. It's barely perceptible from far away, but at the heart of the town, where the tech center had existed since before most people could pinpoint, the noise could not be called a hum. It was a rumbling of engines constantly working. It surged thoughts and peace until all the residents could think about was the machine. Though its purpose was unknown, the loudness affirmed its importance, trying to persuade the residents of its necessity. But it has been around since before most residents arrived in this distant town. In a manner of speaking, the community elder is metal and fuel. The siblings are now at the boundaries of Shanti. They see a structure protruding from the ground miles away, probably a small cluster of cottages a long time ago. They guess by the flat walls emerging from the soil and empty holes for windows and doors. People say that Shanti was abandoned after the sky thinned and the area turned inhabitable. Most people who lived there, like Chimi's great great grandparents, immigrated to Yantralok, located at the edge of the habitable lands. Those who stayed eventually disappeared. Now the site looks like phantom plains. The house, the shops, and the people are all debris, indistinguishable from the grains of sand. Jimmy feels the atmosphere shift when she's outside the hum's influence. The air has a new pulse. The siblings fall into pace, synchronized. They walk, legs and arms moving to a beat, as if guided by a metronome. The sun is on the brink of peeking out from the horizon, dousing the sky in shades of tangerine. Fluffy clouds look spray painted pink from underneath. It reminds her of the cotton candy and marshmallows she used to have at the town's fair as a child. Her brother suddenly pauses over a really modest rock, like any other rock, but Jimmy knows it's notable by how he perks up. She could sense it too. Without exchanging words, she brings out a sound absorber and adjusts its dials. Her brother puts on his gloves and lifts the rock once Jimmy is ready. Work isn't all that bad, she thinks to herself in anticipation, excited for what will happen next. In the faint buzz of machines, a new sound permeates. To call it a sound would be wrong. It's more like a sensation. Jimmy holds the device closer to the fluid preserved under the earth. secluded from today's world. The surface of the primordial pool barely ripples. Steam, neither hot nor cold, rises from it. She feels it stick over her limbs and then her head, eventually making its way under her clothes, oozing into her heart. And though it settles over her, it isn't stifling like sweat. Though it has weight, she feels light. It feels like being cocooned in a bubble of airy cotton. She cannot feel the weight of the absorber, her worries, and her exhaustion as she dissolves into the muffling fog. If her brother voices something, she wouldn't know. Her body loses its solidity and becomes a throbbing pulse, her heartbeat. Losing all perception of her senses, she isn't in this world anymore. She's in one she doesn't know that perhaps existed in Shanti a long time ago. She vaporizes and becomes silence. And the absorber keeps quietly working until all the noise fades away.